There we go. I'm going to start our recording so that we can capture this. Make sure that we have this going. All right. Well, welcome everybody. We've already done our catching up and over our coffee and conversation. Let's see if we can zip through this. This is our link tree in case you have not seen this before. That'll be in the chat. That's everything that you need as far as information. 1 million cups. And this is good to touch base on this because before our conversation today, just as a reminder, even though I'm sure people have seen this before, that we're all about supporting each other in the community, sharing ideas. This is a little bit different than some networking groups that you might have been to before, where it's not about just, hey, what business can I suck out of the room? It's about connecting with fellow entrepreneurs, providing presentations and insight to those people presenting, and making sure that at the same time that we're very inclusive and supportive of our entrepreneurial community, which extends beyond just Seattle. It's a national organization. There's chapters all over the place. And some of you have been to those other meetings, so it's great. At the end of the day, we're all about education, presentations, and connections. And there's a lot of data out there and people that have said great things about 1 million cups, and hopefully you're one of them, and getting value out of it. Just a reminder that the second Wednesday of each month, so not next week, but the following week, be like May 11th. This next one is our in-person. We'll touch base on that a little bit later in our conversation. Thank you to our sponsors. We operate on no budget. We have people that donate items to our community so that we can run things and keep us organized. That includes method customization and the McLaughlin method. And our community leaders. So there's organizers like myself and other people on the call. If you're interested in being an organizer, or even if you just want to volunteer a skill or some resources, let us know. We're all about that. So today we are going to jump into a town hall discussion. And we're still going to allow some time at the end, as usual, to do some breakout rooms and be able to connect with our community. So keep that in mind. So with that, these are some general questions that we asked during the town hall meeting is, what can the 1 million cups community improve? How can we grow and improve our community and impact? Impact being very key in that statement. Because at the end of the day, we want to provide value and have something come out of this. And how can we leverage our community and resources? So with that, I'm going to actually stop my share. Do that. There we go. Get out of there. So those in general are the questions that we're kind of looking at within the town hall context. So is there, and we could touch base on any number of things related to that. At the end of the day, really it's, what can we do to improve this experience for everybody? And I recognize, a lot of the people that are on the call come quite often. So you're spending time each week with the 1 million cups community. What can we do to improve that and provide value within it? Even if you want to say, this is something that we absolutely don't want to lose, or this is an opportunity that we've never done, but we should consider it. Any of those things are on the table. Okay. Stephanie, you have your hand up. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, I decided maybe that's for the best.
Yes.
So, well, I have a couple of observations, I think, over the last couple of months. I know I'm one of them, definitely, who's been sort of dipping in and out because springtime is very, very busy in my industry. With that, though, being said, it is nice to see a lot of friendly faces every single time, but there has been less of new faces. I think every time I have been in the meetings over the spring season. Not saying that there necessarily isn't, you know, an issue or getting out there or anything like that, but it does show that a lot of the people who are very attached to 1 Million Cup Seattle tend to be also members of either volunteer members. I know specifically when I was talking with Katie before that just because of my own time and everything, it was like, okay, I want to be one of the people who is in the room, not necessarily one of the organizers and so on and so forth. And I think it's wonderful we have so many organizers, but of course, I don't know if there is something that in the 1 Million Cups format that is basically something or a position of organizer that is to get people basically put the word out and say this is an opportunity to come out here and come every single week on Wednesday. Obviously, everyone here is business owners. Everyone here, runs many different types of wears many different types of hats as well as have very large networks in general, but that could be a possibility over the last number of months. I know there's been transition too. We've had a number of people come in and come out from an organizer position, but is there something in place from 1MC, or is that something that maybe the organizers have already discussed in terms of getting the word out there and just saying, hey, there's more opportunity, more presenters, more people to come in and listen? I don't know where we are at on the average. And again,
Yeah.
that's for me. I like seeing more and more people, but I don't
Yes.
know what the average is across. Plus, we're also in the Zoom format versus the in-person format. I unfortunately have not been to the in-person format because it's about an hour and a half one way for me to get up there with traffic and parking and everything else. And then an hour and like it'd be a whole day, which I'd love to. I want to be able to do that at some point, but every single week is not possible for me. So I like the
Yeah.
hybrid model, but I am curious because I wasn't at the last meeting, how many people were in attendance who were new? Is there something in place in terms of getting more faces in? Again, I've been spotty in terms of coming in for spring, so I could be completely just talking.
Yeah. No, no, no. I get it. We have, and it is true that I think on the average, anecdotally, I'm not looking at the data, but we probably have on the virtual, maybe a couple new people any given meeting, one or two new people. It's not a lot necessarily. There many times it's people that drop in, and it's also true that those people may not have even been there for a couple months, but they're people that we've seen before that kind of drop in and out, on occasion. But brand new people, it's true. There's, usually there's one or two. Not sure I've seen a lot more than that. Although in the in-person ones we had, especially the first one, we had a lot of people that had never been to a 1 Million Cups meeting before. So
How
um,
I've
yeah,
also noticed a number of presenters not coming back to be part of the community either. Like they'll present and then they go. Like
yeah,
I haven't seen some people come back. There are some presenters, obviously, or organizers or people who come back who have presented or an education presentation, but there has been, I would say, more often than not, a presenter, and then it's like, great, I got my pitch. And not saying that's a bad thing. Obviously, we're here as a forum to be able to discuss and pitch a product or project or service of a new startup company. I would hope, I would like to see that someone who did present felt like, okay, I want to continue getting feedback or at least part of the experience of the community. Maybe there's a different way to make that
yeah,
more.
yeah. As far as to that point specifically, we do encourage people to participate in a meeting before they present. And the hope is that you're right, like they can continue on, but we do have people that come in and present that say, yeah, I'm really my main 1 Million Cups community is on the East Coast. And I'm going to participate in your community and see how it goes. And then I'm going to present and get some feedback, and might even come back later at some point, but they're primarily involved with some other community potentially. But I want to touch base on your point as far as outreach. And I am not the primary person that does it as far as on social media and LinkedIn and posting things. There's a lot of other people that do that. I know Tessa does some as far as setting up some of that stuff. Matthew does puts a lot of the word out there. I don't know if anybody else wants to jump in as far as like what they've done to do outreach to connect their network or to get the word out to the broader community.
I can speak on that.
Yeah.
So I do a lot of networking for my business, and then also just to connect people together. And when I do one-on-ones, I do a follow-up email. Sometimes I'll mention one MC on the call, but I'll always do a follow-up email that says, these are a few groups that I'm a part of that I attend regularly. So if you want to join in, and I explain a little bit about what 1MC is, and then also Matthew's Connectors Corner. But I put that in my follow-up just to have a way for them to not schedule a whole nother one-on-one for 30 minutes, but just to kind of jump in where I'm at, and then also connect and meet with other people. But I haven't been seeing a return on that. So I'm wondering if there's another way I should go about it, maybe speaking about it more in my one-on-ones. But yeah, I do outreach that way. And then I was thinking we as a team could do like a 30-minute power hour work session on like personal invites, because I think that's always the best.
Any other thoughts on that, the getting the word out?
Just to be clear, I think that any organizer, any person or volunteer, obviously this is volunteer, right? So
Yes.
people saying their network, reaching out, I don't want it. I definitely don't want the impression is, okay, everyone has to hit a certain bar. I mean, we're here because we enjoy talking to people. I enjoy coming here to talk to other like-minded entrepreneurs. It's not a, pass fail in this case. Oh, you didn't get so many likes or so many new invites or so many new people. I was mostly curious less about kind of everyone's involvement and more of, is 1MC, like the overall organization, has some recommendations or methods or guidelines to suggest to a group to reach out. Because I know other networking groups have like certain guidelines, and sometimes to the point where it's almost tedious, where it's like everyone must bring one person, drag one soul into the meeting every single week. And I would hate that to be the format here. But I want to be sure that it's not a requirement. It's like, are there things we could be doing in terms of?
Yeah, no, I get it. And I don't want this to turn into BNI either.
Right.
I just,
yes.
I don't think that's the vibe here, but at the same time, yeah, there's, we do a lot of different outreach on LinkedIn, on the different social media stuff. And like I said, I'm not the primary person doing that, but we do get the word out and create posts that people can reshare. And certainly a lot of people do. I mean, I talk about it all the time with people that I run into just within my network. But yeah, it's tough because Kauffman Foundation, who kind of is the overarching, 1MC, and even we have a regional rep that is like a staff member of Kauffman Foundation to support us, but they don't necessarily say, oh, they provide materials and templates, but they don't say, oh, this is the playbook, or this is, on a global level, we're going to promote 1 million cups. As far as I know, or I haven't seen any evidence of it. So it's kind of, fortunately for the flexibility for us, but unfortunately from the standpoint of support, it is kind of like the franchise model, like here's all the tools, you do what you want with it, like they're not promoting it. So as far as I know, unless somebody else has some other input, but
Sheila mentioned something too, actually, but sorry, Sheila.
Yeah, Sheila, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I don't really want to add to the outreach question per se, so that's why I was waiting, but
Yeah, no.
it is really hard, and I've done my share of putting things out there over the last years. I think, people are really looking for participating in something that's more active participation than passive participation. And you have done a great job on that one particular format that I don't have a handle on when it shows up, but the whole session is like divided into a participatory format where you had several breakouts and successive questions. Yeah, teacup.
Yeah, teacup combo. Yeah.
Teacup. It, I think, the element of community is really cool. And at the same time, we're kind of like a postage stamp community here. But, how to kind of move beyond the idea that anything's wrong to how can we tap these strengths that we have seen are attractive to people so that we have a more active participation that also includes the presentations, and maybe those breakout groups that we end on. I think just framing some things in a way that's a little more than like, this is what we're not. We're not. There's a line that you say every time, like we're not a networking group that's
we're
for
present.
business. That's not the word we use.
We're presentations, not pitches.
Presentations, not pitches.
Yeah, we're all
so
about
like how
engagement, not networking. Yeah.
Maybe tap the community to find out the purpose behind attending, and then adding some active elements that will engage people more, so that it's maybe more
community questions out there.
More generative questions as part of the program.
Yeah, I know that in another group that a few of us are involved with, they have breakouts rooms, and that's the main thrust of at least some of the meetings, is just an opportunity to connect with other people, entrepreneurs. But they do, during those breakout rooms, have like a starter question.
You got to have the starter question
just in case that people are at a loss as to how to start the conversation. So,
but that elevates the exchange, because if everyone comes in and it's a free for all, what happens is whoever is inclined to start first starts monopolizing the session. So there needs to be some structure around it so that there's an acknowledged approach to time management, so that the talkers and the inclined talkers get as much time and attention as the inclined listeners. So there is a little bit of engineering and setup to the question, and then there can be a little bit of engineering around what happens next. After we have this little conversation, or sometimes I do a format of an interview. After we do that, then one person will introduce the other person, or there's ways of putting it out there so that it's somewhat engineered, that gives people complete freedom within a container, because people generally are not sitting around thinking what's the best way to exchange on Zoom.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, okay. So there's a and the teacup combo, just to circle back on that, because you brought it up. The idea is that the last meeting of the month, by default, we do some sort of a teacup combo or espresso round. So that last meeting of the month, which will be virtual, we try to, and kind of alternate it, have the teacup combo, which is those questions, usually a few questions to kind of go into breakout rooms, talk about them, and come back to the group. That's the basic format. Or espresso round, which basically gives everybody in the room an opportunity to, if they would like, to spend, like up to a minute just talking about who they are and what they do. Kind of like a just kind of an overview, essentially, little things so that you kind of get to know the people in the community and what their focus is. So yeah, we do try to do some of those formats, and that it's not just the presentations. Interestingly, even in a virtual format, the Kauffman Foundation, I think that their format that they have promoted has been 2 presentations, just like we do with in person, we do 2 presentations. That's the standard format, even for a virtual approach, is the 2 presentations. And ourselves, and what I've found is quite a few other communities have adjusted that to allow for those breakout rooms at the end, or at some point during the meeting. Sometimes for some people, they do the breakout rooms in the middle of the meeting. But to allow that opportunity for people to connect and talk about things. And to your point, Sheila, we could, offer up some, hey, we're going to put you in breakout rooms. Here's our expectation in the breakout rooms, and here's a potential discussion topic, that we kind of set up in there. Yeah.
One more thing about that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it kind of goes back to my presentation a couple weeks ago where, we're looking at answers, few people have the answers or many people have the answers. I'm kind of putting out there that how do you move 1 million cups from few people having the answers to creating a space where many people are contributing the answers. And so rather than expectations of 1 million cups, it would be an invitation to explore a topic. And there is a container, but it's not like a rule. I don't know, it's a sort of a shift from that hierarchical model to a more open model where people are contributing, so that in the end, the organizers would be gathering input that would help what people see in the community.
Yeah, there's one approach that I've taken with like a town hall approach, since you're talking about town hall stuff, is that in preparation of kind of like a big shift in strategic direction of an organization, or developing a new plan, we'll oftentimes have set it up as more of like a champion format, where you say, hey, what are some ideas? And you brainstorm and have everybody put out those ideas, and the people that garner the most support or most interest in those topics, then they go to a breakout area. In the past, has been like a table in one section of the room or some area, and then they discuss that. People that want to discuss that one topic, and then come back to the main group and present something, or provide some feedback. But it's not that the leader or the facilitator or the heads of the organizations are necessarily the champions. Just whoever is interested in that topic kind of heads it up, and you get feedback around that. So it might be a similar format that we could use.
Yeah, maybe, but I'm not hearing that the preliminary steps where people gain the sort of psychological safety to actually be participating to determine the topics. Because I've seen it where, exactly like you say, it's like, let's open it up to everyone. Here are the topics you're going to talk about, but it's like not the topics that people would have talked about.
Yeah, no, I get it. It's got to start with some sort of brainstorming where people are allowed to bring up stuff without comment or criticism from other people. It's just like you put out the idea. It doesn't matter who you are. Every voice is equal. Everybody gets to put out topics on,
Yeah, it's the spirit of like
Yeah.
generative inquiry.
Yeah.
I'd
Stephanie, you
like
had your
to
hand up.
add to the conversation. I didn't want to
Yeah.
interrupt. So
Yeah, no.
I actually like both of what you discussed. I see Sheila's perspective, and Dan, I see your perspective. I've had experience in a number of groups, and I've always been personally toying with this idea, which is the whole aspect of past like business, how to help your business. Because I've been in business for 7 years. In fact, I actually pitched my first idea of my business to one MC in Tacoma years and years ago. And the hope and the dream at the time was to be able to talk to other people who had experiences in other businesses or other issues or other problems that maybe I would face or that I never even thought of. And it was like, wow, I can absorb all these experiences and I don't have to go down the same mistakes or the same roads or the same issues by listening. I understand Sheila's perspective is that by having an open format of saying, okay, everyone, what do you want to talk about today? Everyone's going to be quiet because it's very hard to put yourself out there and say, this is what I want to talk about. I've seen other groups, what they'll do, and this is a different type of model, not necessarily what and one MC could or should be, but they'll do like a development day where everyone will talk about what's kind of the current thing or issue or concern in their business now or startup of what's happening, and then do a smaller session where they'll talk about it with someone who maybe has that experience. Like Dan, you mentioned strategy. It could be that, we have a format of, instead of teacup, it's okay, here's the types of things most common in businesses. It's either, strategy, or in terms of, in my case, would be marketing, financing, so many different categories where it could be that in a breakout session, there could be somewhere where, okay, we're going to have a group session today about strategy, and the main person or organizer or even deemed, participant is the main point of leading that meeting. So you have a breakout session of 2 to 3 people, which is less of a pressure in terms of being in a bigger format. Now, to be fair, to have so many breakout rooms, there has to be more people to do this, obviously, but that would bring less pressure. There would be more value in terms of the exchange, because it's, oh, great, I got to answer my question. I got actually some feedback on my business during this meeting. That makes this group more valuable to me because I actually got something I can use today. Not that the presentation or the other formats, not that you can't learn from that. I'm just wondering if that's something that is closer to what the spirit, right, of entrepreneurial stuff is that I want to talk to other entrepreneurs. I want to make sure that I don't feel like I've messed up, or I have a question like, gosh, did anyone else do this or go through this? I'm kind of at a loss. I have no one else to talk to. I used to make jokes of another group, which has been a number of my client owners, was that we were kind of like our own therapy session, because you have so many different experiences and problems as a entrepreneur or owner of a business compared to everyone else, that no one really understands, what keeps you up at night in comparison. There's probably a number of different formats to do that, but I think having that smaller format, like a breakout room, and having some type of either buddy system, but have like an expertise, a person who's like expert, can lead a conversation confidently and successfully for that topic, might be something to consider as a meeting, as a format. I'm not saying every single time, because obviously one MC has its own format, but that might be a valuable, okay, great, I have a question. It gets, I don't have to wait to present. I don't have to, I could talk about this every single month and get some feedback to actually implement it.
Yeah, and I think in the past, we have had, and speaking of the teacup combos, we have had some of those that were focused on something specific. Like we had one not too long ago that was focused on business plans, where everybody kind of brought questions around business plans, and we kind of focused in on that as far as a topic. But you're right. I mean, it's each individual might have an opportunity to, might have a challenge or something that they would like to put out there. Yeah, exactly. That there might be some feedback. I know that in another group that I'm involved with, it's similar to that format a little bit, in that it is a very more of a traditional networking group where, people come in and touch base on, hey, this is what I do, like, hey, this is who I am, here's the contact info kind of thing. But there are people that will say, hey, this is what I'm looking for, or this is my next challenge, or, you know, this is where I'm at in my business and what I could use help on. And then other people will be like, oh, okay, I'll follow up with you. You know, like it doesn't happen in the meeting, but it's an opportunity for people to connect and say, oh, I might be able to help that person. And then the expectation is you help outside the meeting. And there's even a part in the meeting where people are allowed to bring up, hey, since last meeting, I connected so-and-so to this resource where I was able to talk to them and we got that worked out, you know, so that they can share wins. But that's something where it's kind of a really fast networking, like in out kind of meeting, where there's just opportunities to connect with people. But you're right, if there was what you're suggesting is, hey, there is an opportunity that during this meeting, the main thrust of it is kind of more of like an ad hoc support around something. So you go into the breakout rooms with expectation, people can bring up something, say, this is my challenge. And the other people can say, oh, here's an experience I have that might be useful, or I could make a connection, or, you know, that sounds very similar to this. And this is, you know, this is how I resolve that issue.
I feel like that would be fantastic if it was done more, that's not morally exactly, but if it was done in a certain way. When I say that is that I've been very fortunate that I've talked to Matthew, who's referred me and talked to me, brought other connections in the same industry. Leif, I'm working with another project on, but I've never talked to anybody where, yeah, I want to meet after the meeting and I want to make sure that I talk to you about your stuff and then have the intention of continuing the conversation further in a way that is to do business. I personally have never done that. I feel, to me, that's icky, where it's like that's not the spirit or the point. It's more of like I want to talk about it because I love being an entrepreneur and I want to talk about marketing in general.
Yeah,
but I
yeah.
feel like sometimes the intention in some groups, even though with the best hope, is like, hey, I can answer questions, maybe something might come out of it, maybe not. But sometimes it's not the same case, like in every single point, which also leads to that being handled a certain way. But also, again, as Sheila mentioned, someone may not even want to bring up that they have an issue for fear that someone's going to say, we'll talk after the meeting. Like, I'll only help you until we have like a one-on-one. And then that pressure, I know from an introvert side of, oh gosh, I have to do a one-on-one. There's an expectation. Maybe this is now a consult. I'm not sure if I want to go forward with this. That's sort of like one of those things where I feel like it has to be almost a twofold, and almost as a community, as a group, just reestablish and push the intention of 1 million cups for everyone to talk here and talk about is to help and educate and to be able to be a supportive community and not to lead to some type of service or some type of sale. It may happen to it, which we've mentioned, right? It may happen, but that's not the point and that's not the intention. And or we change the timeline of that, right? So you do the breakout room and then someone gets the chance to start talking, feeling more comfortable with that person and say, you know what, it sounds like we have to go further in this. Let's set up a second time. Let's talk one-on-one off this. And you made,
but the conversation's already started at that point.
Correct. Yeah. So there's more comfort and more clear, because I've been there, and I've been there where I've talked to someone after the meeting and it's interesting and fun to get to know more about their business. But I've also have left a meeting feeling like, okay, they were just here to sell me. They didn't really want to get to know me. They didn't really want to, tell me anymore or really help me in that case. They just wanted to sell me on something.
Yeah, thank you. Matthew, I'm going to put you on the spot, and because you made some comment earlier about the in-person meetings, and as far as some questions around that, as far as how we improve participation on those, since that's kind of a new thing that we started back up again. We gained some input. Any specific comments or questions around that?
Yeah, I mean, overall, it just boils down to like, what can we do to increase the value of the experience, right? Because it has to be perceived as worth it for people, right? Whether it's virtual or in person, it's like, I think it's easier to deliver value in some ways to the virtual experiences than it is to the in-person ones, in specific, because there's just so much cost to show up, right? So the value has to offset the cost of showing up.
Yeah.
You know, and so I think, and when I think about events that I choose to go to, and particularly live events, you know, it's like there's a personal interest, there's a desire to experience something, there's a want to know that when I show up, I'm going to be interacting with people who are, you know, equally interested in building community and making connections and being a resource for one another, and that there's sort of like a consistency to things. I mean, I think what people don't understand, and therefore I think there's an education that's missing in the context of the 1 million cups structure, is that I'm never going to do business with you if I don't get to know you. So if you don't show up and keep showing up, at least show up 3 times, like over the span of a 6-month period, why would I, you know, unless I absolutely need what you have, and I know that I need what you have, and there's a clear directive around that. It's like people forget, oh, your presence repeatedly at something makes a difference, even if it's just seeing you, right? And then, like, you know, Stephanie, when you were talking about these breakout rooms and sort of the experiences of things, and Sheila as well, one of the things that came to mind is like, questions are good, but good questions are better, right? And so, like, how do you actually teach people or provide the context for people to understand that when you go into these breakout rooms, right, or when you have 5 minutes at the top of an event, at a networking event, you know, don't start off with the question, what do you do, right? That's like a boring sales pitch question. You'll get a boring sales pitch answer if the person is off of their game or doesn't want to really talk or whatever, you know. But if you say, hey, what are you excited about today, or what are you working on, or where, you know, like getting to know them more personally, I think that gets overlooked. And like in the group that Tira and I participate in for the Clubhouse app, we talk about this thing called PACE all the time, which is an acronym for Passions, Achievements, Communities, and Endeavors. And look, if the only questions that we asked were around, you know, what are you passionate about, what are you working on, and who are you out there to serve, right? Those will elicit far greater responses and create opportunity for us to support one another than the question of, oh, what do you do and who do you do it for, right? It's that distinction, and I think a lot of people just struggle to kind of have effective, and I'm going to say this word, networking conversations. And I think here's the problem, and I think this is a problem with the Kauffman Foundation, is we are on the, if I'm so bold to say so, we have a slide that says not networking. I think that's a problem, because we are networking. That's what we're doing. We are human beings, and human beings are networked creatures. We don't live outside of our networks. We connect with human beings, right? It's the bad impression that we've put upon, and the horrible practices that we've engaged in as shitty networkers that make us feel like networking is a bad thing, but it's not. And so I think part of it too is also saying, like, you know, what beliefs are we leading with in our conversations about how to create community and what kind of a space this is. And I think the other thing, just to go back to your comment about the live event, Dan, look, again, for me, Stephanie, I'm in the same boat. Like, I live up in Custer, Washington. If I'm going to get into a car and come down to a live event, it's 1 hour 45 plus parking and gas, right? So I better have some good podcasts, and I'm going to do it. But I also know that when I go, I'm going to probably spend the day in Seattle, probably going to work work at a co-working space, probably going to go meet up with some friends, right? So I think part of it too is like acknowledging that the investment has to be there in this hybrid environment in such a way that it would actually be worth it for Stephanie to say, you know what, I know it's going to take me an hour and a half, but because of this, this, and this, I'm going to get in my car, I'm going to drive down that freeway. It's going to be a pain in the butt. I'm going to get my podcast, but I'm going to show up because, right? And I think we need to cross that threshold, the because threshold, particularly for the live event, but I would say so, even so for the virtual event.
Yeah, okay. Well, sorry that I called on you, Matthew. I know you didn't have anything to say about that. So we'll.
Oh yeah, that just
But Sheila looks like she has a follow-up on that. Sheila?
Yes, I'd like to point out that I am now in Pacific Beach, which is more than 3 hours because of traffic from Seattle.
Oh, yeah.
Matthew
It's a
is
ways.
in Custer, which is way up the road.
Yeah.
Stephanie, what town did you say you're in?
I'm in Tacoma Puyallup area, so 512.
Tacoma,
So we're
Puyallup.
right near the
Yeah.
fair, essentially.
Yes.
Who knows what will happen in that little section of road? Kiara's in Arizona. I don't know where Adele is.
She's
Maybe she's in Seattle.
No,
Maybe
she-
Diane's in Seattle.
Adele.
Portland.
Portland. Yeah,
Portland, Oregon,
Yeah.
even better. Are you the only one in Seattle, Dan?
Yeah, I'm technically just outside the Seattle city limits because I'm in Lake Forest Park, but essentially Seattle. Yeah, I'm
So-
probably the only person that's really in Seattle.
So this is like the most enlightening thing about this conversation, because we are dedicated. I would say we're like a core dedicated people. There's some other ones, of course, that couldn't
Yeah.
make it today, but and I'm not super regular. And so Stephanie said she's, here and there, but we all have our things happening. But the thing that I want to make a point about here is that I'm going to retake up the outreach and the promotion, especially around the social media. And if we're so distributed, social media is way more important than we think, and not just posting on social media, but genuinely like creating some form of discussion on, and this is not just like 1 Million Cups, but many organizations, they're like, join us on social media, and then they put a hashtag out there and they put a post out there, and then you go there and there's like nothing happening. So like, what would it take to engage, invite, generate some kind of actual back and forth that would indicate how lively and what type of culture one would be coming into, because there's I just went on a trip that included San Francisco, and it's like the ambient tone of humans was in itself like energizing. Here it's the silence of the trees. So it's like, how many rural people or people who are not exactly going to travel to Seattle could truly value a community that is big thinking as Seattle? We're all as big thinking as Seattle is. We just don't happen to be there. So here we have a kind of distributed group. How can we represent that through the social media that would then also generate that outreach as an organic engagement that would lead to the meetings where people more deeply participate?
I also think we're just now in an era because of the pandemic of online. Like there's so many more business owners. I mean, I've done way more networking than I did in person, mainly because of the time commitment. I mean, it's so much easier for me to commit a time to jump into a Zoom call for an hour versus the time to get there, the talking beforehand, the people kind of, messing around. So I used to go to really early morning meetings. And so people have coffee and donuts. And so people are like eating or snacking at the same time. And it becomes not just, an hour format, it becomes an hour and a half format. And then people stay after to talk more. It becomes an entire morning. And that was just, on like literally less than 10 minutes away in terms of where I was just to go to that meeting. So adding, distance. So the format for virtual is, I think, wonderful for me. And I think there's a lot of people in this, like, for example, I mean, Vancouver, Washington is a huge city,
Mhm.
and we don't people up north don't realize kind of the South in general, the size, where I think there's definitely a lot more. And I think 1 Million Cup Seattle is the only one MC in Washington State, I
Mhm.
believe, unless there's a
Uh,
Spokane one.
No, there's a,
Oh,
like,
Walla
when
Walla.
that, Walla Walla, that's it, yeah,
Okay,
it's
so
someplace in Eastern
whole west
Washington.
side, we have one area that we could target. And I mean, at the same time, I know there was one in Tacoma, one MC years ago, but kind of the same problem is, again, we're in a new era. We're in a new era where there is
Yeah.
a virtual environment. There's an
Yeah.
opportunity. There's definitely an opportunity, as Sheila was saying, from different areas that isn't just in city proper.
Yeah,
and
certainly. Yeah.
people
and-
are actually moving to rural areas. I just went to
Mhm.
a lunch with the mayors with the Grace Harbor Chamber, and they're all describing a great influx of people from the north, by which they mean Seattle. But you know, like people are moving to Elma, like they're moving to this other town, I can't remember the name, population 700, and then they're saying like, where is everybody? Like, it's just, there's been a big, huge sort of diaspora from the urban areas of people who want, I guess, you know, more affordable real estate, whatever. But
Yeah,
there's definitely people who have bigger mindsets who are potentially available.
nice. Yeah. I like Stephanie's comment about the Game
I
of
know, the
Thrones, the
North.
North.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
that's
It
right.
is that way. It is. It's like the South area, and like for most part, even with business with clients, I'm just like, oh, do I even want to talk to a client that's in Bellevue? Because it's like again, I would say this year probably 40 to 50 to almost 60% of new customer acquisition has been out of state for us, like just as new
Oh,
clients
okay.
because of everything. Because someone doesn't have to be in, you know, in the same area to do websites and to do marketing and so on and so
Sure.
forth.
Yeah,
And so,
I think there was somebody that I met, I think through 1 Million Cups, that he used to live in the Seattle area, but now he lives in Korea. So, yeah, go
it
figure.
continues, and that's the amazing
Yeah.
part with the community is if you feel value in the people who are talking, and again the relationships, as Matthew mentioned, made, that's
Yeah,
going to stick with you regardless if you're going to move to a different other country, or in Tara's
yeah.
case to another state
So
across the continent.
Matthew, you were raising your hand there?
yeah, so then is it a disservice to ourselves? And I know this sounds weird to say it, but to call ourselves 1 Million Cup Seattle. Because look, the majority of us are not in Seattle, and there's a context under which, well, heck, we could all work in other cities, and we do. And
Yeah,
like, how do we, because I guess the thing for me is like, if that's the, like, is it that people are not interested in networking in Seattle, and that's why you don't have people in Seattle? that
it's
are-
too, yeah, like you're saying, we're defining our community as the city, whereas really it isn't. Yeah,
Yeah, like it's activated through the city, right? And maybe it's how we frame it, and maybe there's got to be some, like, you know, marketing around that. This group isn't solely for people who live within these zip
We-
codes that operate in zip codes, right? But that maybe there's, like, you know, a different way to talk about it, so that people who have left the city but still want the city connection can see this as like their like you know, their through line or something.
we
right?
did, yeah, in a nonprofit that I was on the board of a while back, we had the platform we ran all of our programs on was a tall ship, sailing tall ship. And it was registered in Seattle. So it says Seattle on the boat, you know, like on the stern.
You with
there.
the Lady
Stern plate.
Washington?
No, this is the Adventurous with Sound Experience. But what was interesting is that the community that we had the strongest level of support from was actually Port Townsend, which is where she would winter most times. Excuse me, and we switch our messaging to say Washington State's environmental tall ship. And we really focused on the state level and got support from the governor and like really positioned it as a Washington state thing and not a Seattle thing. And that did help us.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would also like to mention that even in Alaska, they talk about the big city being Seattle. So there is something to Seattle, that people relate to. But with like right now, I'm looking at your link tree, your entrepreneur community for Seattle and Puget Sound area. Maybe it's Seattle and Western Washington.
Yeah.
There could be
true.
people who don't even know Puget Sound. Like, let's say someone like, I mean, everyone
Oh,
here
yeah.
knows Puget Sound, but it's like, that's such a like, oh, that's what that's called. Like I know
Yeah.
other people are saying, it's like, oh, it's just the, it's just the water thing that you guys
Well,
have. Like, what is that?
Like
Yeah,
half the state.
and you're part of the marine community now at Salish Sea. You don't say Puget Sound, so that's that's so 80s now. So 20 minutes ago. Okay, so we're at the end of our time at 10 o'clock. We never got around to breakout rooms, but I think the discussion was great, and the size of the group, I think, is better that we stuck together on this. I want to be respectful of people's time, though, and kind of wrap up the conversation. This doesn't mean that we can still, right now we do have a LinkedIn presence. A lot of people have LinkedIn accounts. But it would encourage people to continue the conversations and reach out and connect with like any ideas that you have or suggestions. Thank you, Tiara. I know you were kind of capturing some of the thoughts there. We'll kind of maybe float that back out. And I appreciate everybody joining in this discussion because it was very helpful. And as Sheila pointed out, there's, the people on the call are people invested in the community. So I really appreciate that. I will say, and I won't pop back into slides, but I will say that we are looking for presentations. That's an ongoing thing. We're looking for people to come in and present and build those connections. And even better, if they're looking for a community, to the point earlier that some people drop in and drop out, they're looking for a community and interested in presenting, that would be even better. So just put that out there that we definitely have slots open for people to come in and present. So to promote that.
Thank you, Dan. Before I
Yeah.
just wanted to give it back to Sheila and Stephanie, because I was literally typing away. I got so much feedback. That was super helpful. But is there anything we can do for you guys? Like, do you have a specific ask that the group can kind of work together to help you with?
I have a combination ask. So Dan mentioned presentations. I've been around this idea, and I started that idea with the searchability versus shareability presentation. And it was short and very general, very generic, because otherwise it would be going into too long. If there is an interest in doing an education presentation, I would love to figure out something of doing a series, like actually talk about doing a series in relation to that. And I'm not putting out there as a yes or no. I'm curious if there is a format to do that, if that would be worth it, either as a combination or a part of a meeting, or maybe even part of a teacup discussion to start, or even just make a format like that. And, I'll just say like, throw my hat for marketing or whatever, for website stuff or SEO, but make a format where someone can talk about an education topic and then open up to the rest of the meeting to say, okay, let's go out through breakout rooms. Let's talk about it one-on-one. Let's talk to different people. I don't know. For me, it's more of, I'm here because I love talking to other people because I feel like I'm not crazy. So I'm not the only one with anxiety and fear and running a business. And I feel more of like how happy, blessed, excited I am to actually be an owner and actually have clients and actually do this, versus some days where I'm just like, why do I do this? Why do I continue to do this? And that's where I like that touching base point. For me, I would love feedback, because the biggest thing for me in these groups and meetings is to understand how people view business what are their fears in business, because it also comes back to knowing sort of the environment and education level in what I do as well, where I can hear someone in this, like in this group, talk about, you know, I'm having a lot of struggles in this. I don't have anyone to talk to or resources. I know, oh my God, forgetting his name at the moment. It's Jeff or John from the library, from Seattle Library. Or am I saying his name completely wrong? I can't remember. I remember Jay, and I don't remember
Jay.
his name.
Jay,
Yeah.
just Jay.
Just Jay? Oh my gosh. Okay. I thought it was more than that. No, just Jay. So Jay's fantastic. And he was fantastic listening to and talking about his education presentations and learning more things. I think stuff like that I'd love to see more of, because that's my value. That's my value in this. So my ask for me is just, I'd like to see more of that. I would love to be a part of that, just because that's something I do already in a sense. I'd love to get better at it, because a long time ago, before the pandemic happened, I used to do in-person live events and I used to present in front of people. But in formats now, I'm kind of rusty. I also talk too fast, and it's something I've been working on and trying to enunciate and be a little bit slower and less technical. So that would be what I would be interested in, is educational side, and I'd love to participate in that.
Okay,
Oh,
I love that. I added it to the list. We can get together. Is this all of our organizers? And Tessa. Tessa. Yeah, we'll get together and talk about that. I really like that idea so far, though.
okay. Sheila, anything to tack on there?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to do a participatory generative session like I was talking about, because that's the way I've been working lately, and I think it would apply really well here. I also think one way to do outreach for this group could, especially if it were Seattle and Western Washington area, could be to do specific outreach to chambers of commerce and become the go-to group about entrepreneurship. Because a lot of chambers are not really about entrepreneurship, or they are a little bit, but they're not really specialists, because they're really catering to those bigger industrial, employer types with the bigger numbers of employers. So those are two separate things. And I think people would have fun in the generative type session, and it would be really great. And I think that other thing is a whole project unto itself.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us today. And we've got some good ideas to talk about and work on and develop. So thank you.
Are we
With
having,
that,
sorry, are we
what?
having an organizers meeting?
10:30.
Yeah, cool. Awesome.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, thank you very much for everybody for joining us.
Good to see you all.
Yeah, it was good to see you all
Thank
too.
you so much.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.
All right, I'm gonna go get some breakfast, but I'll see you guys at 10:30.
Sienna and Jeff.
Yeah.
Cool.